This is a production of WTVI PBS Charlotte.
Just ahead on Carolina Impact.
I could have got killed 5 times that day. I'm just lucky to be here.
A World War II veteran shares his memories of being a prisoner of war. Plus, a close look at challenges service members face as they transition from the military to civilian life. And how these volunteers transform rundown houses into homes for veterans. Don't go anywhere. Carolina Impact's Tribute to Veterans starts now.
WTVI PBS Charlotte presents Carolina Impact, covering the issues, people, and places that impact you. This is Carolina Impact. Funding for Carolina Impact is provided by the members of WTVI PBS Charlotte and by
the Philip L. Van Avery Foundation is pleased to support our region's arts organizations and artists with profiles and feature stories on Carolina Impact.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Amy Burkett. In honor of Veterans Day, we'd like to say thank you to all the brave men and women who have served our country. During World War II, about 12% of the U.S. population served in the military. By comparison, the military makes up less than 1% of the population today. Historians say 16 million Americans served in some form or another in the 1940s, and every American felt the weight of the war. Food, gas, and clothing were rationed, taxes were raised. Carolina Impact's Danielle Koser joins us with one man's extraordinary story of life as a prisoner of war.
Thanks, Amy. Well, I remember sitting there in history class learning all about World War II. We had to memorize a lot of dates, when the war started, when it ended. But it wasn't until I sat down with 93-year-old Levi Caldwell that I truly understood the sacrifice so many men and women have made for my freedom.
The Liberator is hit.
They were shooting at me from the ground, and I could see the tracer bullets, just red, blue, and yellow, coming at me.
More than 70 years have passed since Levi Caldwell was shot down from a B-24 bomber during World War II. Step into his Charlotte home today, and it's like walking into a museum.
So this is a letter that I wrote on October the 25th, 1944.
Letters to home, newspaper clippings, and medals document the nearly 3 years he spent fighting for his country. Born into a family with 10 children, it's hard to imagine his parents' heartache when 7 of their sons left home to serve Uncle Sam. Levi's story starts in January 1943 when he was drafted.
There's not much excitement any way you go around it. When you get drafted, you're drafted. They're going to send you where they want you to go.
Levi shipped out to Italy with the Army Air Corps in March 1944, working as a flight engineer.
And this is Edward W. Bender, radio operator.
Months later, one of his missions went horribly wrong. Enemy forces shot down this plane after bombing an aircraft factory on the banks of the Danube River.
All of a sudden, there was just an explosion. It knocked me back across the aircraft to the other side. The flames were engulfing the whole side of the plane.
Falling quickly, Levi says the flight crew had 30 seconds to jump from the plane.
And I said, Bender, you have to jump. The plane's on fire. He said, no, you go first. So I didn't hesitate. I went out. He came after me, and they shot him coming down in his parachute. Now, if he had not hesitated at that point, I would have been in his position. You have to think about that.
Levi says he barely survived the plane crash, waking up in Budapest to a boot on his chest and a rifle in his face.
And I said, man, I better not move anymore.
This marked the start of 10 months in captivity. Levi says soldiers took him to Gestapo headquarters, where officers interrogated and beat him before bringing him in front of a firing squad, asking,
Mr. Caldwell, you have any last words?
But for some reason, they didn't shoot.
I can't tell you what that was.
The interrogation and beating continued for a month before soldiers shipped him to a camp in Poland.
I was a prisoner of war in Stalag Luft 4.
Levi still has this postcard he sent home from camp.
Dear folks, getting along fine, and don't worry about me as I'm being treated well.
But Levi says that was a lie. Dr. Brian Jones, a history professor at Johnson C. Smith University, explains why prisoners had to censor themselves.
If you write something that your captors are going to disapprove of, it'll never see the light of day. And so you write what you think they would want to hear.
But guards couldn't censor these journal entries, scribbled on the backs of cigarette labels collected from Levi's American Red Cross parcels. This one is dated December 9th, 1944.
Red Cross parcel today, milk, coffee, cigarettes, Spam, chocolate.
In February, Allies made advances, forcing the guards to evacuate Levi and the nearly 9,000 other prisoners from camp, marching them 700 miles in the middle of winter.
If you could not get a barn to sleep in, you'd sleep outdoors, sometimes 30 below zero. Everybody caught dysentery, and it was a mess.
After 87 days, the marching stopped. Levi says guards locked them in a barn, then disappeared. Before long, the arrival of British allies confirmed the war was over.
The barn we were in was surrounded by British tanks, and they didn't even give us a ride. They were so intent on going and joining up with the Russians that all they told us, head that way, bloke.
The war was over, but Levi's journey wasn't. Weighing only 80 pounds, he says he was so malnourished his own brother didn't recognize him when the two reunited at a hospital in France.
So I walked into his tent and I said, "Hello, James." And he looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, you ought to know."
After 6 weeks in the hospital, this is what Levi looked like when he returned home to his family and his girlfriend, Virginia.
She's the first one I got to.
And they've been together since. This photograph shows the two on their wedding day, June 14th, 1947.
And I just feel like it's a person's duty, to protect his own country. So that's what I tried to do.
They've been called the greatest generation for a reason. I mean, these are men and women who fought and died with tremendous resiliency and courage in the face of terrible circumstances. There's just no other way to describe it.
The word bittersweet describes Levi's homecoming. His parents celebrated the safe return of 6 of their sons, but mourned the loss of their 7th enlisted son, Charles, one of the 400,000 Americans who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country during World War II. As Levi pores over old letters and photographs, he reflects on the sacrifice his family and so many others made, fighting for the country we live in today. For Carolina Impact, I'm Danielle Koser reporting.
Thanks so much, Danielle. And happy anniversary to Levi and Virginia, who are looking forward to celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary soon. Levi is one of about 25,000 World War II vets living in North Carolina. Across our state, we have about 55,000 veterans who served in the Korean conflict, about 250,000 who served in Vietnam, and more than 290,000 Gulf War veterans. Altogether, that's 750,000 veterans living in the Tar Heel State. Well, making the transition back to civilian life can be difficult. Carolina Impact's Jeff Rivenbark introduces us to a new partnership of organizations in our area, helping to make things a little bit easier.
Thank you, sir. I have to figure out if I still have room over here.
This is no ordinary photo shoot.
Great. And then just bring your chin back to me this way. That looks nice. Great.
Once a month, Brian Bazemore donates his time to take
awesome.
pictures
And
of veterans. In less than an hour, he takes about a dozen headshots. Meanwhile, over in the next room, more than 30 veterans talk over lunch about all sorts of things, where they've served, which companies in Charlotte have jobs, or where to find childcare. Charlotte Bridge Home hosts lunches here each month, and they've been doing it for 5 years. Cindy Basenspeller says the organization helps veterans transition from military to civilian life.
This could be in anything from getting a job or getting a better job, relocating their family, or getting services for their kids or their spouse.
Charlotte Bridge Home is also the hub for a new partnership of veteran agencies called NC Serves.
Charlotte has good things to offer veterans. Veterans need a little assistance in navigating and finding that way, so that's what NC Serves is intended to do.
Bourne says one of the greatest challenges veterans face?
Social connectivity.
For veterans new to a big city like Charlotte without the support of a military base, it can feel a a bit intimidating.
When we were all on post, when we were in the military, we knew where we needed to go to get the things on base. They were simple to find. In Charlotte, it can be a little harder. So we deliberately have events like this lunch, runs, workouts, volunteer projects, ways to engage the community so we can get in front of veterans and let them know about the resources available.
Each month, about 20 new veterans show up for these lunches, like Darren Short. There's a feeling of camaraderie as the veterans introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Darren Short. Retired 22 years from the Army, 11 enlisted, 11 commissioned as a military police officer.
Short moved to Mooresville a year ago. Mementos on his wall show his sense of pride for his military service.
The Army used to have a motto that said, you know, we'll show you the world. Well, they certainly, in regards to myself, kept their promise.
Since August, he spent lots of hours poring over real estate books. He wants to become a realtor.
You know, I've always enjoyed interacting with people, and I've always, I've considered it that may be a good second career option.
When he moved here, he knew no one. About a month later, he went to a veterans event where he met Michael Jordan, and that's when he learned about Charlotte Bridge Home.
And there was a young man there named Tommy Norman that was being honored. It was called the Gala of Heroes. But he handed me his card and said if I need any help with, housing, finding a job, whatever he could do to give him a call.
He says the organization has helped him adjust to civilian life in a number of ways.
They're there to, help you as much or as little as you want or need. And they just make sure you understand it's available.
For work in the communication field. In the meantime, I volunteer on the board of directors for an animal rescue group.
Ashley Horton had a similar experience. During her 7-year military career, she encountered lots of dangerous situations. But when she got out of the Marines 4 years ago, there were a different set of challenges she faced. She turned her love for animals into a pet care business to make ends meet.
Hey Bailey, do me a favor, sit. Sit.
Even with military experience and a college degree, she says it hasn't been easy finding work in her field.
It's terrifying and it's just a really humbling experience trying to find your way back. So it has been a challenge, but not one that I can't overcome.
Her involvement with Charlotte Bridge Home not only helps her feel connected, she's also learning how to market herself to potential employers. One way is updating her headshot.
And a lot of veterans don't understand, having been in the military and having had a military photo all of their life, how important it is to have a great LinkedIn profile that shows the best side of you in a suit or in business casual.
I hope it exudes everything that I am about and I believe in. The sincerity in my face, the dedication, the commitment that the military has instilled in me. I hope they can see that in my picture.
Remember Darren Short? It's been a year since he learned about Charlotte Bridge Home.
To be honest, I felt like I didn't want to go there and say I was unemployed and that I wasn't working.
But something happened the night before that gives him the confidence to go.
Just passed my real estate exam last night, but still unsure what I'm going to do with it.
And while he's not sure about his next step, Short says he's more confident knowing Charlotte Bridge Home and NC Serves will be there to help him navigate whatever challenges he faces as he adjusts to civilian life. For Carolina Impact, I'm Jeff Rivenbark reporting.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Joining me now is Tommy Norman, a veteran himself and founder of Charlotte Bridge Home. Tommy, thanks so much for your time.
Happy to be here, Amy.
And thanks for all you do for our veterans in the community. Why is this so important and special for you?
From my standpoint, it's always been a soft spot in my heart. The military has been a soft spot, but certainly more than that, it's when I see these young men and women, when they're coming home, they're headed back to the civilian community, I know to some degree what the challenges are and what they're up against. A lot of those are basic decisions. Where do I pick up on a career? They all have to go find a career. Their benefits are not adequate enough to give them the economic support that they really need to have. So we know they've got to find that direction and hopefully that passion and interest that they really care about as their second career. But in addition to that, we know that it's a family decision on where they're going, where they want to be. In many cases, they have children, and so they have a lot of options. Many of them are from small town USA. They are not going back to small town USA because the opportunities are not there. Charlotte, North Carolina's got some of the finest economic futures that these guys could have. We're a non-military town, but they know that this is one of those opportunities that could make a lot of sense for them. So that's why they start picking Charlotte.
And you said thousands are expected to come here over the next year to 18 months?
The last numbers we got out of the Joint Chiefs of Staff were somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 14,000. We think probably 12,000 is a good working number over the next 18 months. So if you got 12,000 veterans times a family factor of 2.5, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 25,000 individuals.
And you go to Washington, D.C. and to the Pentagon, Department of Defense to talk. You know, what is your role when you go visit?
Well, we're trying to emphasize, obviously, we're putting our Chamber of Commerce hat on and we're talking about Charlotte, but we're also talking about the transition steps that it takes as you move out of the service. It needs to be orderly. We obviously would like it to be seamless, and it's not just a question of finishing up your military activity and then stepping into the civilian world. There really is a whole process of putting your resume together, making some hard decisions about your life, what you really are interested in, what your capability, your aptitude, and your interests are. But taking those to the marketplace is a pretty big gap in there. You don't just mail it out. You don't just put it on the website. You've got to go make those contacts. So we try to open those doors and make those contacts into the business sector or wherever particularly they want to be going.
You shared with me how much training is involved for these men and women before they head off to protect our country. Yeah. But the training for the transition back is not the same.
You know, we do a terrific job. We've got the strongest, most effective military in the world. Nothing touches it. And part of the reason and success of all that is, one, we're an all-volunteer service. The volunteerism has changed the makeup of our military considerably. 0.5% of the American population are in uniform, 0.5%. World War II, it was 15% of the population of this country. So it's a very, very small percentage, and many of those individuals come out of military families, but you know, they go into skill set training from their basic, and in many cases that is a year to a year and a half worth of training. When you return to the civilian world, there is zero training for all of that. You basically are left up to your own vices to figure out where I need to go and what I need to be doing. And we feel very strongly that we can be there with a hand out to help and assist, but we want to do it on the front end while they're still in uniform.
Tommy Norman, Chairman and Founder of Charlotte Bridge Home, thank you for all you do
Delighted
for our
to be
brave
here.
service
Thank
people.
you all for the exposure and all the support that you continue to give us.
Well, there are a number of programs aimed at helping veterans achieve home ownership. But for many, qualifying for and finding affordable housing can be a huge challenge. Carolina Impact's Sarah Batista shows us how a new organization helps veterans find a place to call home.
After 4 years of being boarded up, this house is getting a new look. New insulation, new ceiling, new door, you name it, it's new. But this isn't just any ordinary rehab project. This house will eventually become home to a United States veteran.
Our philosophy is to help honorably discharge veterans with a hand up as opposed to a hand out.
Ken Lacey is the executive director of Veterans Path Up, a nonprofit organization that provides affordable housing to veterans with a path to home ownership. He says the need is great.
When I was contacted by Charlotte Bridge Home to use our houses to put veterans in, I had no idea about 50,000 veterans in Charlotte and 135,000 veterans in the greater Charlotte area, and a significant percentage of those veterans not having stable housing and needing some help.
One of the problems veterans often face with getting a new home is getting pre-qualified. Veterans Path Up connects them with mortgage lenders and credit counselors who can open the doors for veterans. Lacey, who retired in 2013 after serving 26 years in the Navy, launched the organization because he says many veterans struggle to make ends meet.
Literally 2 or 3 jobs, sleeping in cars, If they're lucky, they may have relatives in the area, but that's a finite period of time because the house is perhaps usually full already.
Lacey says he saw an opportunity to give back and partnered with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Housing Partnership to restore this donated house. More than 30 volunteers will spend about 6 weeks working on the 3-bedroom, 2-bath house just outside of Uptown Charlotte. So what type of condition was the house in when you got it?
Well, as you see, the ceiling here was all rotted. They stole the ridge vent out, so all the water came down, and it was all molded sheetrock all the way through. Biggest complication here was the electrical. It was all ripped out, so there's nothing, and we don't know where it is, so everything has to be rewired. But there's all walls, and so it's new wiring for an old house, which is the most difficult.
When Frank Aguilone heard about the project, he immediately jumped in to help.
This is for the veterans, which is always good to give back. After all, they gave us our freedom to do this, so we might as well give back to them. I love it. This is a dream come true. This is a huge bucket list thing for me.
We've got veterans in here right now that are helping to work. We've got skilled and unskilled, we've got volunteers, and we've got tradesmen. There's just something about being amongst our brethren that is just, a sort of a family, if you will.
Wade Davis, a veteran, says he understands the need for affordable housing firsthand. The father of 6 has been searching for a home for his family. Progress is slow going.
It's been up and down, I easy time finding a job, but for the housing process has not been easy.
Davis says he's excited to be able to help another veteran move into a new home.
It feels great. This is something I always wanted to do, but never got a chance. So by me doing it now, it feels good, and I know I'm giving back.
Lacey says the camaraderie across services runs deep.
I've worked with the Marines, I've worked with the Air Force, I've worked with Coast Guard and Army, and we're one big team.
In the future, he wants to obtain more houses to help more veterans.
Because we're filling a few key gaps that are not being served in the system, I want to really create a template that can be duplicated across North Carolina and ultimately the United States. I mean, that's my pretty lofty goal, but it's a lot more than just what we have here in Charlotte.
But for now, it's one project at a time, turning rundown houses into homes for men and women who have served our country. For Carolina Impact, I'm Sarah Batista reporting.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Veterans Path Up hopes to have a veteran in this home by Thanksgiving. To learn more about the organization and ways to help, we've got a link posted along with this story at pbscharlotte.org. Check it out. Well, recently, WTVI PBS Charlotte partnered with 2 Project Lift schools, Ranson IB Middle School and Thomasboro Academy, to take dozens of students to the Renaissance Festival in Huntersville. As producer Russ Hunsinger shows us, Education Day at RenFest gives students a unique way to experience history.
Today we're open for one of our 3 student education dates for 30,000 school students to come on out and experience the Renaissance. It's important to open it up to students because we believe that the Renaissance Festival offers a very unique educational experience through entertainment. The Renaissance is a very important part of human history, and it ties in very well with school curriculum.
We actually had the opportunity to study the Renaissance time period, and each of my 7th grade chorus students was given the charge of decorating a coat of arms. So they had to identify the characteristics of knights and the time period.
Honor, loyalty, chivalry. I taught my children about the knights' values and how they set up their coat of arms. And so we also have coat of arms at Thomasboro called the Roar Values. So we talked about how we compare and contrast what they did in the past.
We provide teachers with a student-based study guide, and it's a wealth of information about the Renaissance time period. And we provide it to them in advance to their field trip date so that they can build lessons in the classroom about the Renaissance time period before they come out to the village.
opportunity to see the style period dress. They've seen music being played as we walk by. And now they're going to take part in witnessing a jousting competition. They did it in the classroom, and we did a search together online, and we looked at some images, we listened to some of the music, and then they had the opportunity to work independently and decorate their coat of arms.
It was kind of cool to see someone as a tree, because I felt like he was standing on those like stilt things, and he let me touch the fruits on the side, and that was kind of cool, because I never saw something like that.
Really excited to come. This is really cool. It was like a big village.
You there in the hood, come here. We went to this place with two women. They were doing out this thing that happened back in 1588. They choose me to be one of the queens.
I love the jousting, the way people dress. Really want to try to calculate.
It's nothing like being able to show them real life about what we've been talking about. It was perfect.
Thanks so much, Russ. Looks like everyone had a lot of fun. Well, we'd also like to give a big thank you to our partners, Rose Transportation, for providing the bus for us to be able to take all those kids out to the festival. If you'd like to check it out for yourself, you'd better hurry. The Renaissance Festival is open weekends through November 22nd. And don't forget, we've still got one family 4-pack to give away. It's reserved for one of our Facebook friends. If you haven't liked our PBS Charlotte page yet, please do, and you may be our next winner, like Deborah Maddox from Cleveland, North Carolina. In order to get our winners their tickets, they need to private message us their address so we can pop them out in the mail to you. Well, that does it for us this week. From all of us at WTVI PBS Charlotte, thanks so much for joining us. We hope to see you back here again next week on Carolina Impact. Good night, my friends.
Funding for Carolina Impact is provided by the members of WTVI PBS Charlotte and by
the Philip L. Van Avery Foundation is pleased to support our region's arts organizations and artists with profiles and feature stories on Carolina Impact.
a production of WTVI PBS Charlotte.